Hi Year 9, Mr. Tabley here to walk you through your next lesson of Year 9 Humanities. This lesson I'll hopefully be able to explain the dev and the cat for World War I history in a bit more detail. This lesson will also hopefully provide people who feel like they need to catch up on some unfinished work the opportunity to participate in some independent study, a bit of creative freedom, dealer's choice. You've either got the option this lesson to catch up on unfinished work, or you can get started on your research grid and your essay plan because I'll be explaining how to use those documents in this video, hopefully. So, slides 70 to 76 is where you need to go for this lesson. This is what we actually looked at last lesson. I'm just going to buzz through it really quickly so you guys can jog your memory, so you can remember what we introduced last lesson. So I talked about the cat very briefly, the word count, the essay plan and the research grid, the time of class you'll have, the fact that the cat and the research grid will be digital, so you'll be typing those up. However, we're asking you to handwrite the essay plan just so you can demonstrate you still have the ability to write the English language. I went through the essay topics in the last video. I won't do that again. And I think most of you guys probably stopped about here. So in the last video I did go through these kind of step-by-step instructions for how you might want to budget your time for studying for the CAT over the next couple of weeks, but I think most of you probably just selected an essay topic and went about your day, and that's fine. But what I'll be working on today with you guys is hopefully explaining how to complete your essay plan, how to complete your research grid, and then showing you where those support resources are to help you with those tasks. So, these slides will attempt to offer additional resources, instructions, and support for students in constructing their historical essay. The resources include research tips and techniques, writing skills, and how to effectively use primary and secondary sources in an essay. If you have any questions or concerns, please let me know. So there's probably going to be a bit more freedom for how you guys use your time next week in our 4 lessons of humanities. It'll basically be independent study. So I've given you the instructions, I've given you all the support I can. At some point you guys have to sit down and do the work, and at some point I'm hoping you will ask me questions about the work. I'm hoping that during the next 4 lessons I'm going to be answering 100 billion emails or comments in Google Classroom. But yeah, that's next week. This week I'll be explaining how to complete your plan and your research grid. Just some useful Mr. Tapley tip-top tips and tricks. The most common mistake I see in historical writing, from year 7 to year 12 to VCE, I was probably guilty of this at some point during my university career, is failing to have a contention. So a contention is your opinion, basically, your perspective on the essay topic. A lot of people are guilty of what I call storytelling in historical writing. So instead of giving me a response to the essay topic about World War I, they will say, here is what happened in World War I. Once upon a time, and they give me the beginning, the middle, and the end of the war, and then they dust their hands and they walk off, drop the mic. That's not what I want. You've just told me what happened in World War I. I don't want that. I want you to tell me why these events are so important, and tell me how this information connects to your essay topic and your contention. I can get information about World War I from the textbook. I don't need y'all for that. What I can't get from the textbook is your opinion. So it's really, really important to not just tell me about World War I, but to tell me your opinion. Do you believe alliances are the most significant cause of World War I? Yes or no? And then you reference that in your introduction and in each of your body paragraphs. Or, was Gallipoli important to Australian identity? Yes or no? And then you reference that in each of your body paragraphs and the introduction. So I've given you an example of what that might look like. So, if my essay topic was, alliances were the most significant cause of World War I, to what extent do you agree with this statement? If I just give you information about the Triple Alliance and the Triple Entente, that's not really helpful. That's not going to answer the essay topic. I'm just giving you the background information. What I need to do in this essay is explain why alliances were an important cause of World War I, and then my opinion on whether or not they were the most significant cause or not. So an example for your contention might look like, although alliances were important in creating the conflict in Europe that led to World War I believe militarism was the most significant cause of World War I. So that's perfect because it's short, I know exactly what essay topic that student is doing. They're clearly doing the essay topic about alliances, and I know what their opinion is. I know that they're disagreeing with this essay topic. They're saying, well, actually, militarism was the most significant cause of World War I. Another thing some people struggle with is Teal. I know you guys did this in Year 8 history, because I taught Year 8 history last year. So you had your essay about feudal Japan and feudal Europe. Teal is basically what you're using in English and in Humanities to write out your body paragraphs, your argument paragraphs. So I've got a little diagram there of a teal burger, which I found entertaining, but I'll go through the different elements of teal. So each of your argument paragraphs supporting your contention start with T for topic sentence. So the very first sentence of your topic, of your paragraph, clearly state the topic of your argument and your opinion. I don't want to wait until the very last word to be like, oh, they were talking about the Balkan Wars this entire time. I thought they were just describing their weekend or something. I want to know exactly what your paragraph's about to be about in that first sentence. E for explain. So explain your argument and opinion clearly and in detail. So what do you mean and how does this connect to your essay topic? E for evidence. So after you explain your argument, you need to prove that your argument is legit, that it is correct. So this is basically saying, I am right, and all of these numbers and dates and examples prove that I am right. So specific and detailed evidence, give me examples, quotes, statistics, just some research. And then you finish it up with L for link. So connect your argument to the overall essay topic. Why and how your argument relates to your contention. Cool. And then I've got an example of what a teal paragraph might look like. I'm not going to read through everything there, but you can see I've color-coded this argument paragraph for World War I essay topic, and I've color-coded it with T for topic, E for explain, E for evidence, L for link, so you can read through that if you want as an example. The second last thing I want to talk about is primary and secondary sources. So we had some really good essays last year for Year 9 Humanities. However, most of them relied on secondary sources. So they were using the textbook, they were using websites, which is fine, but you need a balance between primary and secondary sources. It's not good enough to just have one. You can't just use stuff from World War I. You can't just use stuff that wasn't there when World War I happened. You need a balance between the two. When you get into university and you have to do essays for history, you need a balance. They set a requirement. They say, you need X amount of primary sources and Y amount of secondary sources. So it's important you guys understand how to use both of them and that they're both important. So, all the evidence for past history comes from primary sources. These are sources of information that were created in the time we are investigating. So they were there during the time of the study. To study the past, you can use primary sources such as letters, journals, newspapers, art, photographs created in the past. You've also got archaeological sources, so actual physical evidence like clothing, weapons. So a revolver or a rifle from World War I, that's a primary source. Tools like the shovels that the diggers were using in the trenches, primary source. So in our efforts to understand the past, we have created secondary sources. So they were created after the events that have occurred, that either analyze or reflect after these events have actually happened. And textbooks, websites, videos, documentaries, so even using like a YouTube link about World War I, that would be a secondary source that you can use. That's absolutely fine. If that's not enough information, I've also included a couple links there, as you can see. The first one's just a really basic definition of primary and secondary sources. It uses a few examples. The second one there I thought was entertaining because they used the Star Wars films as an example, and then they went through primary sources of the Star Wars film and secondary sources. You can watch that if you want. Anyway, the final thing I'll talk about before I show you the actual essay plan and the research grid file is this research skills tip-top tips. So it's important when searching for information to evaluate the reliability of resources. So use multiple resources from a variety of locations. Don't just use websites. Don't just use the textbook. Use books, websites, articles, archives, galleries, etc. All of them are valuable sources of information, and the more you have, the more different sources you have, the better your essay will be, because you'll have multiple different perspectives. It's why we have 27 students in the class. We get 27 different voices, different ideas that improve everyone's understanding of the topic. A good way of remembering all of this stuff over here I'm not sure if you guys can hear the rain, but it is coming down. A good way to remember all of this stuff is the 3 R's of research. So reliable, relevant, and recent. So you want data, you want evidence from sources that are reliable. So don't just say in your bibliography, oh, Jono told me, and he's like super smart. It needs to be relevant. I'll be like, I don't care that Jono told you about how he went on the weekend or his footy team or whatever. Is this relevant to your essay topic? If your topic is about Gallipoli and you're telling me about stuff that's happened in the Eastern Front and the Russian Revolution, that's not really relevant. So you don't need to tell me that information. And then recent. If you're telling me about all this information and I'm reading through it and then I look at the bibliography and the publishing date is like 1845, I'm gonna be like, oh, that's not useful. That's 100 years before the war occurred. You see that in a lot of World War II essays that I've seen in year 10 writing. You know, the people are giving me these amazing essays like, oh, you know, look at all these sources of information they've used, but then I look at their bibliography and it was written by someone like during the World War World War II. So it needs to be recent if possible. The school offers access to several useful sites of information. Just click on the library tab in Compass for research links, and it gives you a whole page of options really where you can get some really cool, especially now at the moment with remote learning, they've opened up even more access to different sites and different online books and textbooks and etc. So go check out the library tab in Compass. So that's all I'm going to show you for the slides. What you guys are probably after though is, so this is 9G3, 9B1, you've got the same thing in your Google Classroom page. So we've got our resources down here, class slides, videos, teacher notebook, etc. What you're looking for though is this here. So semester 1 dev, essay, and research grid. So to prepare for the CAT in week 5, students will complete an essay plan, research grid, as their dev in week 4. The dev requires students to complete a handwritten outline of their essay, intro, body paragraph, conclusion, and then a digital research grid using primary and secondary sources. The essay plan can be submitted as a photo, so you'll be handwriting the essay plan, so just take a photo with your phone or your laptop or whatever, and then submit the photo. And the research grid can be submitted as a Microsoft Word doc or a Google doc, depending on if you have an Apple device, to Compass or Google Classroom. I've had issues with my year 7s at least, in that they keep going to Compass, even though it's like week 4, week 3, whatever. So what I might do to avoid any confusion is just open up the option for students to submit to either Google Classroom, or if they're having trouble there, they can submit it to Compass, like the good old days. And if you have any questions, please let me know. And you'll see that in this learning task, or this assignment, I've attached 3 files. This one here should look very familiar, because it is the slides that I just went through for the history CAT. I've just made it into like a slightly smaller version, so instead of looking at slide 70 in the actual class slides, this is just the World War I history slides, if it would load eventually. So that's just a little bit of a smaller presentation that you can read through, or you can download that as like a PDF or to Microsoft PowerPoint. So I've just tried to reduce it there so you don't have to go through the entire PowerPoint to get through the CAT information there. The other one that I've opened up in this task is the essay rubric. So this is for the CAT. We'll be assessing you on, looks confusing. I had to look at it a couple times before I got my head around it. Really the main things you want to get out of it are, you're being assessed on your knowledge. So do you understand the historical events that have occurred? Yes. Your skills, so your research skills. Have you used evidence? Have you used your research grid? Have you finished a bibliography? Tick. And then your essay structure. So have you used Teal? Do you have a point of view or a contention, an opinion? And have you used your essay plan? So you can see that this is the CAT rubric. Your essay plan and your research grid are actually part of the CAT. So if you don't complete them, and if you don't complete them to a high quality, you're restricting what you can get in the final CAT. So it's important you guys take them seriously and do a real thorough, detailed plan. I mean, you can see that, you know, this is how you get 1 mark for that section, 2, 3, 4. It's just going up like that. It's just like, instead of reading a rubric sideways, we've done like a little column grid for some reason. Anyway, but what you're after is probably this file here. So World War I dev, essay plan, and research grid. And that's in a Word doc, but I've opened up the Google Slides version, or the Google Docs version. So This little spiel here I've already read through, that was in the learning task. What you've got for your essay plan, I'll go through that one first. As you can see, you can either print this out or you can just copy a template in your book. You need to type in your essay topic, so what topic are you selecting? Your introduction, so this can be, since it's just a plan, it can be dot points, it can be sentences, it's up to you. Introduction, state your contention, what are your 3 arguments going to be about, and then concluding sentence. Body paragraph 1, so that's my first argument, my second argument, my third argument. You can see I've structured it using Teal. And then your conclusion, restate the contention, final comments on the essay topic. So that's your essay plan, print it out, write it on your book, handwrite it out, and then you take a photo, upload that to Google Classroom or Compass. That's half of your dev task. The other half is this research grid. So basically what you do for the research grid is you need 4 different sources of information for your essay. So you need to write in the source. So that might be a website, it might be a book, it might be a news article, it might be a video. So 4 different sources. In this column here, you need to tell me why this source is useful. So why did you put this in your research grid? Why is it going to help you, or how is it going to help you in your essay? And then you need 4 pieces of information that you got from that resource. So maybe you found a quote from someone in World War I. Maybe you found a fact that you found interesting, or a statistic, or maybe you found an image, a primary source that was super useful in this textbook, something like that. So 4 sources of information in your research grid. This one can be typed up. You can also handwrite it. We just thought that it would be difficult to handwrite this like big boxy grid in your workbook or whatever, but anyway. And we've given you an example of what the research grid might look like up here. As you can see, an example of how to complete the research grid is included below. So you can see over in this column, I've given you the source. So I've gone to the Shrine of Remembrance website to get this information. I've told you why it's an important, useful resource. I've said it's a secondary source. Allows me to help understand people's attitudes to the war, both then and now. 1, 2, 3, and 4 facts that I've gotten from that source. So that's what you're completing for your dev, guys. So by the end of week 4, you will have finished this and this. And you can see at the bottom here, and everyone has when you open this up, everyone will have their own separate file, so you don't need to re-download it or something like that. You can if you want to, but you can open that up, and that's your personal file, your personal dev task that you have access to. And what else was I going to say? Right. You can see we've included a couple of useful resources for you guys, so you don't have to do all the research yourself. Hopefully some of these options I've included here. So you've got the Shrine of Remembrance website. Trove is basically a big digital library of resources. The Imperial War Museum is in jolly old UK. Australian War Memorial, BBC, Britannica. Jack Plus is your textbook, because I was reminding you guys you can use the textbook. History.com. That's actually a link to History.com's YouTube channel, because they've got some cool videos on World War I that you can use as resources. And then ABC have a section on Gallipoli that I thought was useful. You can use your own resources. I just thought I'd give you a couple of examples that you could put into your research grid. And this website here, Cite This For Me, is useful and helped Mr. Tapley get through university. Basically, to write a proper bibliography and to write into your source column, instead of being like my shiny textbook, you can put in the details into Cite For Me, and it will automatically make a bibliography a source for that book or that website.